Good evening, everybody. It's Mario with Motorcycle Knuckle Busters, and we got another episode for you. But I want to cover a couple of things real quick before we get into that. We've got the Curing Kids Cancer thing we kicked off here with Knuckle Busters. We're working with a great group of people. Obviously, Kirsch Helmets, who's donating the helmets to the artist for them to design and decorate. Motorcycle Safety Attorneys, who is putting up prize money for the top helmet. Here at Motorcycle Knuckle Busters, obviously, the team behind me, because it's not just me. There's a great group of people behind me that make this thing come to life. And last but not least is the people at Curing Kids Cancer. A wonderful story. We're going to be having we'll have an episode in the future about them, but people at Make 'em Auction is going to be great. We're going to be auctioning those at 5 different auctions across the country. And the difference that Curing Kids Cancer makes is phenomenal. So check it out. We hope that you guys will follow the progress and some of the cool art and things we're going to be doing with that. Other than that, we got a great guest here. We're trying to really diversify and bring you a whole different group of people, maybe some people that you may not recognize. And our next guest may not recognize her name, but I hope after this you're going to know her name, and not only know her name, but know her work and the things she does. She's a filmmaker. She's a designer. She's a fabricator. She's a bike builder. But most importantly, she's here because she's a motorcycle enthusiast. All right. So I'd like to introduce Shirley Petchprapa. Shirley.
Hi, how are you? Good job on my last name.
Yeah, I was so worried. I get tired every time I start these things. All right. Once I'm into it, I'm fine. But it's the beginning that I always stumble on. So like when I'm saying Motorcycle Knuckle Busters and stuff like that, or even my name sometimes, I'm like flubbing it up because I'm nervous. But once I get going, I'm all right.
That's funny, but you did right. You did good.
All right. Well, that's one hurdle. So I'll have to thank Cody for that, because our producer, Cody, he found you and stuff. And you know what? When he sent everything across to me, I'm like, oh, wow, we got to talk to her. She's like really cool and really dynamic. And so thank you so much for coming on. And I can't wait for our audience anyhow to learn a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you for reaching out.
You're welcome. So Shirley, tell us about a little bit, like you growing up. Where'd you grow up at? Your inspirations, things like that.
I grew up in New York. So segues into my introduction into motorcycles quite late in my life. Most people I meet now or I've met in the motorcycle world have been on bikes since they were like 10, in their teens and stuff
Sure.
like that. I didn't get on a bike until I was like 30 plus for the first time ever. So so I grew up in New York, came out here to LA to pursue filmmaking. And one of the things that I started seeing around were these chopper type bicycles that people throw like little 50cc engines in. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool, right? And then I just started having conversations with people and they're like, oh, but that's not street legal. Nowadays, this was like years ago. That's not street legal. You're probably not going to be able to drive it anywhere. So I was just like, okay, maybe I'll just take a motorcycle class and get a license. And so it was a very quick and steep sort of like introduction into just bikes in general.
Okay. Now you say you grew up in New York, in the city?
In the city and around the borough. So not really vehicle friendly,
No, I lived there for a while. It's definitely not vehicle friendly. I mean, right. To try to, even try to do that's ridiculous. I think that GW right now is like, I think it's $16 just to drive into the city on the GW, and I don't know what the tunnel is. I mean, so it's
true.
Kind of, and then my God, to find a parking spot in the city or rent one is just absolutely outrageous. I don't know why anybody would.
And the joy of it, when I go back and visit, I can't imagine really trying to enjoy riding through the streets of Manhattan. You know what I mean? It's like, I used to rollerblade through the streets when that was a thing, and just to get to and fro and get a workout out of it. And you know, that's pretty treacherous because it's just like you're weaving it out of cars. You're kind of doing what a bike would do, but with a lot more agility with your legs. But I can't imagine doing that with that, like a heavy bike, you know, trying to get into, you know, squeeze into all these tight spaces.
So now, like for studies in Manhattan, you know, the one thing, you know, from spending any time there, if you're familiar with the education system, there are some schools that, you know, take kids that have a talent or a repentance towards a certain career path. Did you do something like that? Did you go to a specialized school there in New York?
I did. I went to art school, but oddly enough, I initially went to school for computer science, which I was too young and too happy to be out of the house to concentrate in college. So that didn't really, you know, work out. And so then I switched over to an art school, FIT essentially, but I didn't really have, I wasn't really goal oriented there. And I did illustration, which didn't really turn into much either. And I just kind of dropped out and started doing graphic design. And then my career in graphic design kind of took off, and, you know, one job led to another, and that I had that career for a very long time.
Okay. And you worked with some pretty big clients, didn't you?
Yes, I worked for MTV for several years, the Fader magazine, the now defunct One World magazine, which was Russell Simmons magazine. Yeah, and lots of clients in between, lots of big clients in between when it comes
right.
to
so that's very, very cool. So I'm gonna have Cody pop up a picture for us here. So I came across this, and I just love it. So, you know, wow, you look just like your mom.
I've heard.
So that's wonderful. Now, so your mom and dad, are they still with us?
Yes. Okay. They actually moved back to the motherland in early 2000s. So they're on the earth. They're just not in the States.
Oh, so you didn't go spend Mother's Day with mom, huh?
No, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the motherland. So where is that?
Thailand. They're both Thai. So even though I was born in New York, my sister was born in New York. We were all born here, but yeah, they immigrated here.
Yeah. When did your parents come here?
They came, I believe, 68, something like that. 67, 68. Yeah. My mom was doing her medical residency in downtown Manhattan, which might have been why we lived there or came here. I don't know.
Okay. So they went back. When did you say they went back again?
2000.
2000. Okay. And what made them decide to go back?
It's a bet, you know, to retire, I suppose. Cost of living is a lot lower, and, you know, stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's beautiful there. Now, do you get a chance to go back and see them?
Yes, pre-pandemic, I was there every year. Did an annual pilgrimage back to see them, but unfortunately, since the pandemic began, I have not been back there yet.
So now I came here when I was 2, and you know, mom being from Holland, stuff like that. It was when I went back as an adult and would go to Eindhoven and see these various sites, you know, that were significant to my family. It created a really interesting feeling in me. It's like I felt like this kind of sense of belonging. Do you get that from going there with your family and hearing the stories? You know, maybe it's a sensation that you get because you heard the stories. I don't know. What is that like?
Not really. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or something, but there's not a big sort of storytelling, environment within my family. So I didn't hear a whole ton of stories. It's more like I would have to ask for the stories to get information. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that connection as much to the culture. Right.
That makes sense. Yeah. So that gives me a little bit more perspective on my end because of, you know, how it was for us. So that's really interesting. Okay. That's awesome. Well, let's pop another picture up. So I came across this, there I was looking for Joan Jett in the picture. She wasn't there, but I see you're in there and some good friends. So
yeah. don't recall what year that was. And that was probably an outtake from a photo shoot for, I'm not even remembering where the photos were destined to go. But we were a little motorcycle, group of friends called the Velvets that we kind of formed several years back. And yeah, that was just us fooling around in my friend's garage.
I love the picture. I mean, it's just, I went this Saturday was National Women's Riders Day. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of rides, and we went out to Woodstock, Illinois. I think close to the 600 riders out there. I just love seeing it because I've always tried to be very supportive of women riders because, I have a daughter. I mean, I want my daughter to know that, you can do anything, and don't be intimidated by others or let them put you in a box because, what you want to do, and you do it. Just go out there and tackle it. So I always try to, and I know the group that I'm with here that does this, we really try to embrace and encourage that. So yeah, I love the picture, and it kind of reminds me of a bygone era, but I knew it was a black and white, and it might have been last week for all I knew.
Right. Exactly. It was a fun shoot.
So tell me about some of the gals that you rode with in that group. I mean,
we were all, I had been riding a couple years by then, but there was a real boon in like the whole, cafe racer, vintage Honda sort of, scene around LA at the time, and still probably now. Yeah, we just kind of collectively came around. How that group actually came about is that we were dirt riding. We had a mutual friend, some mutual friends together, and we started going out to do some dirt riding. And dirt riding is insanely fun, as everybody should know. And yeah, I mean, we all had street bikes also, but it really just kind of came around, us going dirt riding. And, we organized some parties, we had some events, and we generally just rode around as a crew, as you do when you're kind of young and, going crazy kind of thing.
Well, and it is, that's one thing about the motorcycle world. Sometimes I feel like we last camaraderie, amongst our peers, and that's one place that you can definitely find it.
Absolutely. And we were also very encouraging of other female riders, and the safety. I mean, my big thing at the time was I know it's fun to follow fads or whatever you want to call it, the hot new thing, but safety was a big deal to me, so it was important just to be around, to be available if anybody needed to, ask about anything, and we would, try to, I guess, educate in a very familial, non-structural way. If anybody had questions about the scene or the bikes or the mechanics of it all, we used to, mess around in the shop together and, teach each other things here and there kind of thing.
So, okay, something we're good. I just, I've noticed one thing amongst women is that lady riders are really, really good about sharing information amongst each other. They're really good about collaborating, about the things they've learned, teaching one another, or being a sponge and learning from another person. And guys don't tend to be that way. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit more egotistical about things, and just who's a better rider, who's whatever this, and it always seemed kind of silly, and I think the guys could take a lesson from the ladies and say, what, this is how we should all be. It's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, it's our own little hood of sorts. So
right.
So let's see another picture here. I saw this. I thought this was an interesting photo. We have no idea what it's about, so you need to fill me in.
I think it was a big flash there. So we were just actually at a club or like a bar, and that just happened to be a very powerful flash, which is why it looks very, very bright. But we were just all hanging out, and you know, getting drinks, whatever. And I think somebody just snapped a shot.
So is this people from your film background, bike background, or just bikes?
This is all bikes, actually. All of the people in that photograph ride. Most of the girls, not everyone in that photo, were a Velvet member. But yeah, no, I mean, at the time we were just, and I think, yes, that girl up front, she had a cast on. So that was an accident, which is unfortunate. But yeah, no, yep, we were just hanging out. Well, it was like a weekly thing. We would all, you know, be out somewhere riding. And
right. That's fun. I love it. Yeah. So, all right, let's go to another one. Let's see what we got. So this one stood out to me because I still have a Triumph. I probably will never give it up. I love the bike. So
likewise.
Yeah. So, you still have this one?
I still have it. Now sitting in my dining room. I have like 5 bikes in the house because I don't have room. But that one's it runs, it's fine. It's a non-op because you know, there's, you know, you can't have everything in registered and ready to ride. But I actually spent a couple months working at the place where that's been photographed in front of, which is called Charlie's Place. He is a sort of a vintage Honda restorer and sort of like really brilliant with old Honda systems.
Sure.
So I was like the odd one out riding my Triumph into work, even though I have Hondas, but that was sort of my daily rider at the time. And yeah, that's a 72 Daytona. Dual carb.
Now, is he familiar with a guy named Don Stockett up by Sacramento?
Don't know that name.
So Don's probably got the largest collection of new vintage parts for Hondas out there.
Oh, new old stock stuff. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, he has bought a ton of stuff. So Don was kind of interesting. He had a Honda, and he was going to law school out east, and he had to sell the Honda. And so he wanted one, and he finally he was getting close to retiring, and he bought a CBR, you know, 350, I think it was. Anyhow, he buys it off of eBay, and he gets it shipped to him, and he says, "Oh my God, what did I do to myself?" So he set off buying parts and stuff for this thing, and then he was enjoying it so much, and he actually got that bike concourse ready, and then started buying up parts and restoring Hondas. So if you go to Mecum Auction, you'll see him there, and he's either got some bikes at Mecum or he's buying up bikes to restore at Mecum. So it's pretty cool. It's all Hondas. That's all he does.
Very cool. My first bike was a CB160. 1965, because it was small enough. I'm small, and you know, when you're first starting out, you kind of want to feel comfortable on something. And I still have it because it's gorgeous, it's great, you know. And I say the best way to learn how to work on bikes is by necessity. You get an old bike, and everything wrong with it will happen in time, and so you progressively start working, you know, learning how to do them, because then you're broke by the time, you know, the second year comes around, you won't have any money. So that's basically, I just wound up learning how to work on bikes because I just had old ones that would just break down all the time.
That's awesome. So, okay, so then I got to ask you, I mean, we've got the mini bike is the doorstop. The Triumph is set where again? Now, where's the Honda? Is it in the bathroom, bedroom, balcony?
No, the 160 is in the bedroom. It's, you know, it looks cool. There's room in there. What do I do in there but sleep, right? The Triumph's in the dining room. The Guzzi is in the living room, and that can get wheeled out and ridden whenever. CBR is in the patio. Ascot's on the side of the house. You know, dirt bikes in the patio. You know,
I love it.
Yeah, they're kind of like wherever I could stick them, that they won't, like, covered so they don't get rusty and all that.
So it's like you got like your own little museum going on there. So, you know.
Yeah, kind of intentionally, unintentionally, since I'm working out of my garage is my shop now. So I can't house, my bikes used to all be nicely garaged, and a car, but now they can't. So they're kind of scattered around the house.
No, that's wonderful. So I absolutely love that. So let's see what we got next for a picture. So you were talking about the dirt bikes, and I'm like, there you are, grabbing dirt. I love it.
I love that bike, XR200. I love it, love it, love it. Super reliable. It'll always kick over. Light. fast enough for dirt. You know what I mean? For, you know, messing around in the dirt. I just love it. It's great.
So now where do you like to go ride?
Oh God, I have to dig up the names in my brain. I've been to Ocotillo Wells or Springs or something. It's all the way in San Diego, like down. It's like BLM land. Fantastic. So many different types of terrain. That's probably the last time I've been. And yeah, you kind of caught me in a brain fog at the moment. I can't remember all these places, but they're always obviously a drive away to do dirt stuff. But no, I think it's probably, other than maybe being on the track, it's my biggest joy, because it's just, you don't have to worry about cars. You know, anywhere you don't have to worry about cars, I'm happy.
Right. Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. I was out riding this weekend and I thought to myself, you know, if it wasn't for stupid people, this would be so much more enjoyable.
Right.
But you know, everything's a threat. And, you know, and I try to explain that to new people to riding, you know, and especially in any sort of traffic. And I'm just like, you have to watch everything. And even when you watch everything, I know a couple of years ago, I had somebody that was at a red light. I'm making a left-hand turn, and they decided to turn into the gas station from 3 lanes away.
Oh my God.
I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
You know, and there they were in my path, and I had to put the bike down, you know, but yeah, if it wasn't for stupid people, we definitely can enjoy it. So I understand, you know, that for a lot of us, I mean, that's my first experience on a bike was a dirt bike. And so, you know, my first love was actually seeing choppers, but a dirt bike was, you know, that was it. You know, it's so much fun.
So much fun.
And so let's roll to another picture, because you were talking about things. I wanted to come up with some of this and get away from the motorcycles. You're a filmmaker.
I was sort of not practicing anymore, but I was when I came, you know, the whole goal of the whole idea of me leaving New York to come here was filmmaking. And I did that for a quick minute, but then it just became, there are just too many chefs in the kitchen kind of situation. And I'm really kind of the type of person who needs to have my hands on most things. And it's difficult to do that as the film projects get bigger. I made a couple films that were small and they went to festivals all over the world and all that. But, you know, once you get larger with scope and material, then there's just too many people involved.
You don't get to be the artist that you want to be. So is
yeah,
that what you're saying?
A little bit. It becomes a little bit too tainted with, you know, the politics of it all, and, you know, and egos and stuff that, like, I guess I got into it too late in life. Maybe, you know, if I was younger, you know, who knows? But
so if somebody wanted to see something you've done, if I wanted to go tonight and try to find, you know, one of your films, where could I find it?
I think both of my films are on Vimeo. I have a Vimeo site somewhere that I haven't touched in a long time. Both films are available there. That my short films that.
Okay. So tell me about the short films. What were they about?
Speaking about them would kind of give them away a little bit.
Okay.
Unfortunately. You kind of have to
so what was the vision for yourself if you would have continued it as a career? What kind of films, what kind of stuff did you want to bring to the world?
They were pretty, like, the films that I made, they're pretty heady, you know, they're more of an interpretive nature. Yes, there's a storyline. Yes, it's linear. You know, it's not like, you know, you're going to go there and see a bunch of colors on the wall and you have to, like, make it up yourself. It wasn't, I like leading people somewhere, but not hand holding them. You know what I mean? So I guess in that sense, that's how my films came, that's how my filmmaking happened. You know, the films, if you do see them, that's how they come about. That's how they evolve, the plots or the stories themselves.
It's kind of like you mark the path and it's their choice how they follow the directions.
Yes, like I tell them that this is the path. Like there's no, it's not a choose your own adventure in per se, but, you know, you have to make up your mind somehow of, like, what they might have been, the protagonist might have been thinking, you know, kind of like you have to, kind of enter into that world, it takes a little bit of work, because I think a lot of storytelling, or at least when I was really into it, was too much of a, I'm going to handhold you through the entire thing. So you don't have to think, you can just shut your brain off and enjoy. And I think there's a place for that 100%, but it wasn't the type of films that I like to make.
Yeah, I'll be honest, there's times I want a film that I don't have to think, that I can just 100%. Sit back and, eat some popcorn and sip lemonade or whatever,
right.
or a cocktail. But then there's times I prefer something that makes me think.
Yeah.
That makes me, gives me something to just, to absorb and dissolve and really take in. So I've got a cousin that does film in the Netherlands, and his films, with the way you describe your films, I would say is very similar to the way he does his films over there. They're thinkers' films, and
absolutely, the European style, which is why I think my films had a larger audience in the European market, and so my film actually went overseas more than it traveled the U.S. And they're tiny little 10-minute shorts, so
right,
10-minute types, but they definitely entered a lot, circulated much more in Europe.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. So, and I think the next picture we have here is just well, I guess we missed that. But this picture, I saw that with the boots up. Tell me, I love that picture because I love just the sole of the boots. I mean, it's so cool. But
that basically, the photograph was taken because of the sole of the boot, and oddly enough, that wound up in a Playboy piece. I will try to find you the link for it, but a friend of ours is a photographer and and a moto enthusiast, and I forget what event I was at, but yeah, that wound up.
Do you still have the boots?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I have the newer boots, but I will not wear them. I'll wear those vintage boots.
Well, when you've got good boots and you break them in, they stay around for a long time. There's people who's, they've got boots much older than their kids, It's like, and, they'll be 50, 60 years old. I've had these boots for 30 years. I was telling somebody with good dress shoes, I'm like, you just buy really, really good dress shoes. And I said, you resole them. I said, because you can't beat an incredible, if you got a really incredible tie-in loafer, you can't beat it. All right. And it's the same way with boots. I mean, I'm looking at some of my boots and I'm like, I'm going to have to resole them. But they're broken in. I don't want to get rid of them, just like you.
Right.
That's awesome. So let's pop another picture in. So this is going to, I got them mixed up, and that's my fault. But is that you behind the camera?
That is. I was the the DP on this particular shoot. A friend of mine was doing a series that actually, I think it's on Amazon Prime, but loosely based on his life of being an adopted child. He's an adult now, but yeah, no, it's a very, very, very good series called Adoptable. And
Adoptable.
Yeah, and I shot it a lot of years ago now, when I think about it.
So was it? It was a show. It was a regular. It was a series of sort, mini series.
I think I forget how many parts it was, but yeah, it's a sort of a short series. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's called Adoptable. It's on Amazon Prime. Scott Lowell is the writer, producer, and actor in it.
Okay. Yeah. So do you get so obviously you're no longer directing. That you shot a while ago. Are you doing any other things in film, or are you pretty much behind you now with the things you moved on to?
Kind of behind me, I mean, that skill set comes up every now and again, needed, but it's not like I seek that kind of work at all.
Okay, gotcha. That's very cool. So let's roll into something else here. So you're talking about racing, and I saw this, and I'm telling you, the fact that dirt track, racetrack, doing riding motorcycles in an urban setting, you know, out in the country, but you're kind of getting all the elements there, aren't you?
This was terrifying. This was my very first time on the track on a
Okay.
CBR 600 F4i. So what is that, like 90, 100 horsepower? And I'm terrified on, yeah, I was terrified.
Okay.
Like, if that was a clear visor, you'd see the look of terror in my face. Because I mean, you know, subsequently, I've picked up a Ninja 250 for track.
Okay.
Because to me, it's not straight line speed. I don't enjoy just straight line speed. I like cornering. You know, I want, yeah, I prefer cornering. You know, I have friends who do land speed, and they've jokingly wanted me to jump on their bikes because I'm lighter than they are, and they have land speed records, but I would take it. I'd probably go 1.5 times faster than them just because of my body weight. But I'm just like, I don't know if I want to just go, you know, twist the throttle and go fast. I kind of like corner speed, but yeah, no, that was terrifying because I did, like, on a bike that's that powerful, like for a first time person on the track, I was like, I'm going to kill myself. And that's Willow Springs, you know, one of the fastest tracks around.
Right.
You know? So yeah, terrifying.
So now, you said that was your first race. How long ago was that?
Well, it wasn't a race. It was just a track day.
It's just first time on a track. Okay.
Blah, 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 blah. That was maybe like 5 years ago. Maybe.
Okay.
4 or 5 years. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you still getting out on the track?
I haven't in a couple years. You know, pandemic has done a lot of things. You know, I haven't really done much on a bike during the pandemic because in the beginning, obviously, I didn't want to increase my chances of needing to go to the hospital. God forbid anything would happen on a bike because the pandemic was like loading up the hospitals. So, I mean, I've been also just busy with work. So I unfortunately have not, but I miss it. I feel the most at ease on a motorcycle because, again, the no car thing, you know, I can take the lines like I want to. I can just do whatever I feel like I need to do. And if I go down, there's marginal runoff. There's a little bit of runoff and I'm wearing full leathers, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely, gear yourself up for safety. You can see that. So a lot of fun. Tracks are amazing. And, you know, I'm like you. I know we've had guests that, you know, have land speed records on and stuff, but to me, you give me a course, you know, a road course. That's so much fun. Yeah. You know, just being able to lean into it, and that's when you become one with your bike too.
Oh,
you know, you just,
100%. Yeah.
You know, that's the reason I like my little, Bonneville. It's bobbed out and everything, you know, that Triumph, but I try to explain to people, I'm like, this bike is just so beautifully balanced. And is it the most powerful bike out there? No. Is it a lot of things? It's not a lot of things, but it's a bike that I'm in tune with. And that's what I prefer. You know, I want a bike that I'm in tune with. And because that's the bike that I've always been in tune with, I just never would do anything with that. So let's run into another picture here.
Ah, my Gucci. It's funny that you should say about like balance. Like once I started riding this guy because it's a V twin and it's very bottom heavy. Yeah. I love this bike. By far the most pleasure riding the Gucci.
So why a Gucci? Because, you know, that's just something that doesn't pop up on the radar. I lived in Italy for a number of years. So, I mean, the Carbonari, that's what they rode and everything else, you know, so you saw them everywhere. But, you know, coming to America, you know, you don't see that many people with Gucci. So how did you end up with the Gucci?
A good friend of mine gifted me that Gucci. But with the caveat is that he gave it to me with one cylinder. And because those guys, the Gucci cylinders are Nicocil, you can't just buy, a random the piston and the sleeve have to come matched. So I had to source and find a whole other jug, you know, head, and cylinder and piston to put onto it to get it back on the road. So it was bone stock. It was just missing a cylinder because when he had it, I guess it blew up or whatever, but it was just gone. It was like a single cylinder thing when I got it. So I sourced the second cylinder, and I got it running, and then I stripped it and customize it from stock.
I think you should know about a tradition that I seen the Carbonary Police, Motor Police do when I was over there. So these guys, I was stationed in the service there, and so they had their little bar was right next to us on the base, and these guys would walk in and they would do, I think it's called a espresso correcto. So what it was a shot of espresso and a shot of grappa, and they, before they would ride, they throw them two together, they slam them down, they jump on the bike and go take off on patrol. It's like,
nice. Oh. I guess there's no drinking on the job laws in Italy.
It's a hell of a way to get the day started. I'm like, wow. I guess that's going to learn something, but yeah, that's what they used to do. So, and they jumped on their Moto Guzzi's and off they went, you know. Yeah. So it was pretty slick. So I want to bring up the next picture, and hopefully I didn't get these out of order. So I'm waiting on it. So, but I noticed what you did with the Moto Guzzi. You did a lot of fab work on that bike.
Fabrication? No, I did everything except for the frame. You know, you modified the frame a little bit, but what happened was, I guess I'll make this a long story. I was having some charging issue problems, and so I was doing a lot of dumping the oil and checking stuff and and all these kind of things, but in between doing 1,000 other things that you do in life. And so at some point I had gotten a new stator, a new rotor in there for the charging system, and ran it, but I had not put oil in it. So the crank bearings got scored because there was no oil in the cylinder. Right. So I scratched, so I messed up basically. So the bike was parked for a while because it was just a project I needed to get to. I couldn't dump money in it at the time because I had to go again and source another cylinder and another cylinder and piston pair. So while it was down, I was like, oh, let me just, take it apart and I'll get the frame powder coated. You know what I mean? It was just like, this thing is apart. It's going to sit for a while. Let me just, drop the motor and do that. So I did that. I got the frame powder coated black. And then while it was apart, I was like, why don't I make this? Why don't I make that? And by the time I kept making things for it, when it came time for the tank, I had actually purchased an Imola tank from Italy because I wanted that type of tank. The Le Mans looking tank. Yeah. But for the small block. And so I actually found one in Italy, got it, shipped it over, and I was prepared to use that. But at that point, I was like, I already had fabricated so many things on that thing. I was like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to fabricate a tank. So I just made a tank from scratch. So that tank is just made from scratch.
So yeah, I saw pictures of the tank. I saw pictures you forming the fenders, everything else. Top-notch work too. The bike turned out beautiful. You did excellent work. So now this, you did this bike, and you're doing fabrication. So tell me about the fabrication work you're doing. Tell me about your company, your business now, and everything, because I think people love to hear about it.
I think honestly, it's like somewhat of a derivative of like my bike life, the fabrication. As a child growing up and as a human being, I always like to tinker with stuff, make things and all that kind of thing. But like the need to weld something didn't really occur until I had a motorcycle. So once you start welding, the world changes. You're like, oh my God, I can stick two pieces of metal together, right? So then it just goes on from there. Not only can you do that, you can do it with, resins. You can do it with, fiberglass. You could do it. Then like the world just opened, and it really just was me kind of like revisiting what I always liked doing as a kid, was just to use my hands and make stuff. So I peeled myself away from the computer, which is, graphics and movie editing and digital things, and just went back into analog, really. I had a business with a friend of mine for 4 or 5 years. We had a shop, just general fabrication, anything you need, cabinets, build outs, benches, whatever you need, basically. And then I just went out on my own, and I just, it's interesting with people that don't understand what fabrication is. They're just like, well, what do you do? And it's hard to say, well, I kind of just do anything, you know, that you might need, you know, well, tell me what you need and I'll let you know if I can do it. Because, you know, sometimes you need electrical work. And so, you know, I'll have to do electrical for this thing that I'm fabricating for you. And sometimes you need to do plastic work or CNC or CAD and all those kind of things. And so it just winds up becoming, I make things. I just wind up telling people I just make stuff.
Well, it seems like everything you've done, you've always been a creator.
Yeah, sorts. I guess so. Yeah. I very much enjoy making things. Yeah.
So, so if somebody, I mean, if you were going to be looked up, how would people find you? They wanted something. If they wanted something fabricated, something created, if they wanted to collaborate with you, doing something on a bike or something like that, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I do have a website. It's issaralabs.com.
Okay.
My email is there. I'm very good on email. Just hit me up on email. Say hello. Okay. Yeah.
So, and what kind of projects do you like to get involved in with fabrication? I mean, if you were going to pick your sweet spot and say, this is what I really like to do, what would that be?
I mean, it's hard to say because I like to mix it up. So if I see something, I like to work with, 3D printing. I have 3D printers, I'm getting into all that, kind of thing now, prototyping, mechanics and stuff like that. I just like things that are challenging and different. There are only so many shelves that I want to build, so many cabinets that I want to make, or,
Sure.
So I am working with a client now who tends to need things with very peculiar aspects, like I recently I'm working on an electric golf cart that's been modified to use lithium ion batteries and solar panel. So it was purchased like that, but since I've gotten it, he wants to use it with to pull a train with children in it. So he needs it to be speed regulated and, and sort of like, electric vehicles, sometimes they jump, they don't have a smooth progression of it's not, they don't have really good throttle control, basically. Right. And so I've had to like get dampers and, physical stops and stuff. I just like challenges. I like things that will make me think about like, what's the best way to do that? Kind of thing. So it's not always just making something look pretty, which I love to do and make things look cool and design things that look cool. But it's also like, what's the mechanics behind it? What's the best way to solve that problem? Like they talk about elegance in code. Like, so a code could be 5 lines or it could be 40 and do the same thing. I want to find the elegance in making things like in a very, efficient, manner. I don't know. It's like geeky, but that's sort of what I get.
I don't think so. They talk about challenging yourself, but you're kind of a step above that because you're looking for others to challenge you, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and infuriating sometimes, but yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
If it was easy and it wasn't frustrating once in a while, everybody might be trying to do it. So I think it takes a special person.
Case in point, I just ripped open a Shirley battery, those lithium ion batteries for bikes, because it was erroring. I don't know if you have any lithium ions on your lithium irons, actually, phosphate batteries on your bikes, but I'm learning all about like lithium polymer batteries, lithium ion versus lithium iron phosphates, and series and parallel, and like why this battery is failing because I'm kind of deep. I've delved deep recently into that right now because I'm pissed off that this battery has not lasted as long as it costs.
Well, I know the founder of Onyx bikes. I know the people over at Zero, Lightning, and some of Energica, some of the big bike builders. So maybe we can reach out to them if we ever, on your behalf, we can reach out to them and say, what the hell's going on here? So, so I think it's wonderful the way you embrace all these things and have done so much. And a lot of people I think you're a great example, for I hate to say women, but I think it needs to be men and women. I think you're a perfect example that if you put your mind to it, let the creative juices flow, you can do pretty much anything you want. I mean, so you're definitely an example of that. Any advice you would have for? I know we get some kids and younger people watching this. Any advice that you would give them based on your journey?
I mean, I have to say that, the modern world with the internet, you can basically have a question about anything and get it answered on the internet. There's so much of what I've learned about everything that I've gotten into with the internet. Like, I would say just more time on educational things and I guess less time on social. I don't know. But you can learn, like, if you have a question, ask the internet. Like, seriously. And because, you'll be surprised and what you can find out and how much you can learn.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because I know I've found a lot of things out and figured things out there.
Yeah.
And that's for sure. So we wrap up every show. We have 3 questions we ask our guests, and personally, I love the answers, and like anything I say, there's no wrong answer and stuff. So you ready for 3 questions?
Sure.
Okay. Now, first question: if you could go ride motorcycles with anybody,
Past or present, who would you like to go ride with?
I mean, I don't think it would be much riding together, because one would be like gone in point nothing seconds. But I absolutely love Marc Marquez. I am
Okay.
a tried and true. I'm like a MotoGP psycho fan. And
Okay.
I came up in the era of Marquez. I started watching probably in 12, and he came into the premier class in 13. So yeah, no, he's such a talent.
All right.
So it's not so much riding with him, because I would probably, if I could ride 2 up with him, just to like feel his, his shifting, his downshifting and all that. I mean, I would rather ride 2 up with that guy,
Okay. That's a very, very cool.
Yeah.
Second question. You've got an array of bikes, so you're kind of eclectic. But if you could have any bike, what bike would you like to have?
Oh, geez. I mean, I have to say that I have fallen in love with Gucci's. Just the way they sound, the way they handle. So I don't know if you know that, but I called when I went to a bike show with my V50. They needed me to give it a name. They wanted to give, and I called it Big Block Envy, because it's, that's why I made the tank so small. I probably like decreased the size of the tank so much just so that the heads could pop out, because on the big blocks, the heads really stick out and they're really prominent. So
Right.
maybe, a V7, an old V7.
That's
A
cool.
vintage V7, yeah.
Okay. And then last but not least, so if you could go ride anywhere in the world that you haven't already, where would you like to ride?
Italy. 100%. Yep.
So we're in Italy, because Italy's, I mean, I was in Northern Italy for years. I've been all over Italy. We're in Italy. Just Italy in general?
I think Italy in general, just because
Okay.
I love the culture of Italy and their just like laid back attitude about stuff.
Mhm.
And I think even just jumping on a scooter, and I have friends who've done this, and just bombing around Italy, I think would be so much fun and beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's a lot of fun. You never know what little town you're going to ride into. Ride into some little town that seems like it's relatively insignificant, and then you find out it has like this really incredible history to it.
Yeah.
And I always love I love it in Italy, because you get the local and regional pride of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a really good friend in Italy, and he said I was going over to the coast, and he said, well, he goes, you want to eat good when you're there? And I'm like, yeah, Andy, I always like to eat good. and I was going to Pisa, and he says, well, tell them that, he goes, tell them the Veneto region has better food than their region. And I'm like, I'm not going to insult them.
Right.
And he goes, no, I'm telling you, do it. So I wasn't planning on doing it. I'm sitting at this restaurant, okay, and this guy says, so, what do you think of food? And I said, well, I don't know. I says, I live in the Veneto region. I really like the food there. Oh, the next thing I know, he's bringing me all kinds of food, convincing me they had better food. So I totally understood after that what Antio meant. And, it was definitely a way to leverage your way into better eats.
Oh, my God. Yeah,
So,
that's a good ploy.
well, if you ever go ride in Italy, I got lots of advice for you. The one thing I'll caution you against though is if it's wet, don't go into the towns, because when you hit that cobblestone in them old cities,
yeah,
it's game over.
Oh
so
no!
I had a buddy of mine that went down a street like that, and it was a little bit wet, and it was like a pinball game. That's how he went down there. So he was in the hospital for like 4 months after that.
Oh my God! Wow! The locals must have to unpack then. I guess the locals
they go wide tires, low power, but they don't take more powerful bikes and skinny tires on those things. So they know what to put on those particular roads. So thankfully they're not all that way, but like in Vicenza where I was at, they had a lot of cobblestones. So you had to be careful there. Mm-hmm. So I really loved having you on here. I think you're a great guest, and we'll be sure to check around and see what's going on, or any cool projects. Send them our way. Jump on Motorcycle Knuckle Busters on the Facebook page if you ever got anything cool you want to share with the audience. What you're doing, things you're doing, because I know they're going to want to check back and hear more about what's going on in your life.
Will do. Thanks for finding me, and thanks for chatting.
Thank you for coming on. All right, folks, that's another wrap on Motorcycle Knuckle Busters. Good night.